But in all seriousness, I finished my first playthrough of Sekiro a few months ago, and I really enjoyed it. But of course, being a Souls fan, I decided to torture myself by starting from NG+7. Before we begin, I need to address a couple problems. In Sekiro, there are only 2 ways to level up attack power. You can get them from defeating main story bosses, or by using 5 XP levels with the Dragon Mask. The Dragon Mask can only be unlocked after reaching the Fountainhead Palace, which is very late in the game. Before that point, there are going to be some very long boss fights. Now, to get to NG+7 with nothing, I gave myself God mode and then teleported to the final bosses of the game. And then I beat them and did that 7 more times so that my character could be NG+7. I have nothing but a couple battle memories I won't use. I will only use the ones I pick up during this playthrough. Also, I couldn't find a way to get rid of XP, so I kind of just had a lot of XP the whole run. Once I finally got into the game, I immediately went to the tutorial boss to see how hard it would be. It went down almost instantly, despite being NG+7. The same could not be said for the first encounter of Genichiro though, because I instantly got my shit rocked. Obviously, he did more damage because it's NG+7, but he also had way more posture and health, which is the biggest part of this challenge. Normally for most bosses, you wouldn't have to worry about the health bar, but in this challenge, most bosses you have to whittle down their health first before you can actually start getting posture build up on them, because it just goes down faster than I can bring it up. But you'll see more on that later. So after getting my hand cut off, I immediately went to go get an XP point so I can unlock the Shinobi skill tree, which will be the most useful prosthetic in this challenge. With all my XP, I was able to buy out the entire thing. For my insane amount of XP I started with, you can just think of me farming that amount, because in NG+7, you get a ton of XP. Next up, I went to Hirata Estate to get the Flame Vent prosthetic, which will be the most useful prosthetic in this challenge. Then I collected 2 other prosthetic tools to unlock the Prosthetics Art skill tree. There's some useful stuff here, but probably the most useful thing we're gonna have here is the final upgrade, Living Force. After using a prosthetic tool like the Flame Vent, attacking with Living Force allows your blade to be coated with the fire, allowing you to burn an enemy in just 1 Flame Vent use sometimes, where it would have usually taken 2. This is going to be very useful for the next boss I'm fighting, which is the Chained Ogre. Now, normally this guy is really annoying because of his weird grabs, but using the Flame Vent against this guy can take most of his health out, even at this insane difficulty level. After using the Flame Vent every time, I'm able to get like at least 5 hits after that, so it just stacks damage on top of damage, and it's just over pretty quickly, surprisingly easy. After that, I ran past the snake real quick, then I got to the first real boss of the challenge, Gyobu Oniwa. This guy has a ton of health and a ton of posture. Even an early game boss like this is already super hard. I can't even imagine what the late game bosses are going to be like. I also used the Flame Vent on him to get a little damage off, and it also slows the posture recovery, which is very useful because I could actually beat this boss on posture. And already this boss is one-shotting me most of the time, So I fought him for a couple hours without any luck, and decided maybe some gourd seeds could help me. So I decided to fight the first general mini-boss. He took a few attempts and his health was obviously more than usual, but he went down pretty quickly, giving me a prayer bead and a gourd seed. After that, there wasn't much I could do except actually fight Gyobu. I had to get in as much damage as possible and just keep trying over and over. And it took a lot of attempts, but on the final attempt, which was almost 10 minutes, I did kill him. Gyobu went down, giving us our first attack power increase. After that, I talked to Tengu, and I killed the rat. After that, I talk to Tengu and I get the Ashina skill tree, climb up this building to get yet another prayer bead. After that, I maxed out the Ashina skill tree, which had a couple things that deal more posture damage, which would be huge. After that, I beat the second general boss so that I get my first prayer necklace so I could boost my health and posture. Next up, the most annoying part of pretty much any run, the Blazing Bowl.
Yo, what's up, dude? What's up? Yeah, we fucking slamming beers or what are we doing? Goddamn, bro.
First off, run back is super annoying. You have to avoid being spotted and kill a bunch of guys before even activating the fight, or you will probably be screwed. Next up is the boss fight itself, which, the way I played it, I baited out the upwards head thrust, and then I would deflect and then use the flame vent or get some attacks in. But every deflect did a little chip damage to me. And after a couple, that's a lie, more like 20 attempts, I realized I wasn't going to have enough health to continue this strategy. Just when I thought I had to find a new strategy or something, the bull had a heart attack and started hitting its head against the wall, and I was able to do a death blow on it. Not sure if that's intentional game design, but I'd take it nonetheless, because that boss really sucks. So after beating the bull, I got another prayer bead, and the game started to open up from here. So I had a lot more options. First thing I did was I headed straight towards Ashina Castle, and I got the gourd seed. Then I fell down and snuck behind some guys to get the Sabimaru, which would be another very useful prosthetic tool. A lot less useful than the flame bend though. Since I was already heading this way, I decided to head towards the sunken valley. Then I shimmied across a ledge to get to an area where I could get a prayer bead. And then I headed straight back to the castle. At the castle, I headed through the dojo, and I went behind the shinobi door and got yet another prayer bead. And then headed up top to fight the Ashina Elite. Ashina Elite is usually not too much of a problem, but since I deal such little posture damage, I need to whittle his health down, and that is a problem. So I decided to start each fight by using a prosthetic tool to get in some starting damage, but even after getting the slowed posture recovery, one mistake, one little slip up, and I'd have to restart the whole thing. Yeah, it was mostly just me sucking, but it was really annoying that I was dying to this guy over and over and not a quote-unquote real boss. I could have gone somewhere else easily, but I decided I had to beat this guy. So I just kept at it for a while, and eventually I did beat him. Unfortunately, one of my recordings got corrupted, so I can't show the real gameplay for a little. I guess you'll just have to believe me for now. I will do an even harder challenge soon to make up for it. I put some placeholder gameplay in the back to sort of match it. Okay, back to the video. Next up, I get a rematch with Genichiro. I did the basic hit till he deflects and then see what he does method, and it worked out really great. Built up a ton of posture. I used prosthetic tools to take his health down, but most importantly, I knew this boss fight like the back of my hand. It was the first boss fight in this run that I actually felt comfortable with, but it still is a super long fight, and I had a lot of resets. Challenges like this make you play boss fights a lot differently than you would normally. Some moves I would dodge so that I can get a window to attack, because whittling down health in the beginning is priority number one. After a couple attempts, I just decided to use the flame vent and use half of my spirit emblems in the first phase and then half in the second phase. Once I get to the third phase, the lightning reversal should take out most of his health, so that shouldn't be an issue. And after a while, I was proven right, because the first time I got him to phase 3, that was the attempt that I beat him. And that attempt took almost 11 minutes. After that, I upgraded my attack power to 3 and then went through all of the dialogue. Then I talked to Tengu by the Sunken Valley, and I got the Mushin skill tree, which I can't do anything with yet, but it might be useful later. After that, I got the Ashina Reservoir idol, and I got the Gatehouse key. Then I went through the abandoned dungeon to get to Senpo Temple. I speedran all the way to the Armored Warrior boss fight. Before I fought the Armored Warrior, I completed Anayama and Kataro's quest so that I could buy infinite Akko sugars. Then I beat the Armored Warrior, which was pretty easy because his posture never goes down. Then I continued through Senpo Temple and collected the Senpo skill tree. When the most important things here is that it gets me more sen and sugars last longer. Then I defeated the folding screen monkeys relatively easily, but I kind of forgot about the invisible one for a little, so... Then I used my third attack power upgrade, got the Mortal Blade, and some rice. Then I beat the 7 Ashina Spears in the Ashina Reservoir for another prayer bead. It was relatively easy because I got a free backstab and then just fought him relatively normally. Next up, Lone Shadow Long Swordsman. I could start this by jumping on top of his head and getting a stealth death blow. The rest of the fight was actually pretty easy because you can get him into a attack deflect loop, and then when he does his perilous attack, you can just jump and stomp on his head, and then go straight back to the attack deflect loop. Then I took a leap of faith down the bottomless pit to get to the poison pool. Then another mini boss, Snake Eyes Shirahagi stood in my way. First I used a Gachin Sugar so the other enemies don't shoot at me. I was also able to get a backstab on her. Then similarly to the last mini-boss, I got her in an attack deflect loop and just killed her pretty easily. Because the grab attack she has, if you don't know, you can actually deflect it. Now for the next boss, I have to gear up and mentally prepare for. So I used my prayer beads for a level up and then continued through the Ashina Depths to the next boss and the most difficult yet, the Mist Noble. Then I started heading towards Mibu Village, made my way past Orin, and got a prayer bead and some divine confetti in a house near the next boss, the Corrupted Monk. Before fighting the monk, I decided to get some more prayer beads, starting with Snake Eyes Shirafuji. Shirafuji is the same as Shirahagi, except with 2 health bars. And I had to keep to the left side of the cliff so I didn't get shot by the other people there. I actually ended up hitting her off the ledge, but I kind of got robbed because she didn't drop her prayer bead and she respawned. But eventually I got her. Then I took out the long-armed centipede giraffe. It was pretty much the same as usual, just a little bit more deflecting. Overall, still pretty easy though. Then I went under the floorboards of the mini-boss, where I eventually got another prayer bead. Then I used the prayer beads for my 4th prayer necklace. Now I'm ready to fight the corrupted monk. From here on out, things do get a little bit easier because now I can use the Mortal Blade. The Mortal Blade is OP in any run, and this run is not an exception. Even without Spirit Emblems, it's still very good. And for some reason, jumping Mortal Draw does even more damage. Now, the Corrupted Monk herself has increased posture recovery, so I pretty much need to bring her almost all the way down before deflecting does anything. Other than that, it wasn't too bad. Just a bit time consuming. The final attempt ended up taking about 10 minutes. Defeating the Corrupted Monk gives us access to the Mibu breathing technique, which I will put to use later. It also allows me to collect the Shelter Stone and get my 4th attack power upgrade. Then I continued through the Sunken Valley and made my way to the Guardian Ape. I tried a few strategies, but I eventually landed on this one. I would use the Flame Vent until I had no more Spirit Emblems, which does the most damage per Spirit Emblem, and then I would spam Mortal Draw, which there were a lot of opportunities for. And that makes Phase 1 go pretty fast, but the same cannot be said for Phase 2. For Phase 2, I initially wanted to use the Loaded Spear for big posture damage. I decided I would rather use Mortal Draw in Phase 1. I decided to also just spam Mortal Draw in Phase 2, which did end up taking a long time. The final time for Phase 1 was 5 minutes, but Phase 2 was 16 minutes. Then I used my 5th battle memory and got the Lotus of the Palace, which is the last key item needed for Kuro. Then I went back through Ashina Castle until I reached Lone Shadow Vile Hand. First I would stealth Deathblow the first ninja, and then the Vile Hand itself is just the same as the other Lone Shadow, but with 2 health bars. If I was in the attack and deflect loop, I would never have to worry about him using his poison attacks. Then it was time to betray my father. First, I would use Jumping Mortal Blade, which absolutely chunks his health bar. I just needed to get his health bar about to 60%, and then I could deflect and get a reasonable amount of posture. And then I would just use Mortal Blade and deflect. Phase 2 was more of the same, except he would instantly recover his posture after throwing out poison sometimes. So I just took out his whole health bar. By this point, I was kind of starting to lose my mind, because I would fight bosses for hours on end, even 10 minutes in a single run, and I would just die at the end. So I was starting to lose it, but I just kept going. And eventually I got it. Final attempt was about 12 minutes. Then I used the battle memory to get to attack power 7. I burned some incense and got picked up by a giant rope monster. True Corrupted Monk's phase 1 is the same as the fake monk, so it's pretty easy. Second phase, I get a death blow for free by jumping off a tree. And phase 3 is actually a little tough because of the terror buildup. After a couple of attempts dying to her phase 3, I remembered the monk is very vulnerable to fistfuls of ash and firecrackers. So as soon as phase 3 started, I would spam them and then get 2 or 3 attacks in and repeat. This usually could take up 1/3 to 1/2 of her health bar. And then I would just finish off whatever health she had left. And the corrupted monk was no more. After beating the monk, the challenge gets significantly easier. First off, every vendor sells infinite divine confetti, but more importantly, we now have access to the Fountainhead Palace, which means we can get the dragon mask and finally increase our attack power. So first I increased my attack power with the monk's memory. Then I ran through Fountainhead Palace, defeating Okami leader Senju. And I used the prayer bead for another level up. I continued through the palace until I reached the pot noble. Then I ran around the map collecting all the necessary treasure scales, and then I bought all of the dragon mask fragments. And finally, I spent my XP to get my attack power up to 21. Then I beat the divine dragon, which was very easy. It just took a little longer than usual. Then I teleported to Emma and got the secret passage key. But before fighting the final boss, I ran around and killed a couple more bosses to get another health level. And then I was ready. Felt good to actually deal good damage for once in this challenge. Genichiro went down easy, as always. The same couldn't be said for Ishin though. Even though I deal some good damage now, I was still fighting New Game Plus 7 Ishin. So it was definitely not easy. But he went down within a couple tries, and I had finally completed the challenge. So yes, you can beat Sekiro starting at New Game Plus 7. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna catch y'all later.